So the very first thing we need is of course the Java JDK. Now I'm guessing that if you guys are watching this, then you already are familiar with Java, at least a little bit, and you probably already have the Java JDK installed on your computer. However, just to make sure that I cover everything 100%, if you don't have the Java JDK already installed on your computer, this is how you get it. And of course, I probably should mention this. Why do we need a Java JDK if we're making Android apps? Well, all Android apps, as well as a lot of the software itself, is made using Java. That's what language we're going to write in primarily to make these Android apps. So, of course, the Java JDK, which stands for the Java Development Kit, is the core foundation that we need before we can even think about making any Android apps. So, the website always changes, but if you go to Google and type in download Java JDK, then the first thing that's always going to pop up is the link to download this Java development kit. Now, if you click right here, what we want is this Java Platform JDK right there. However, whenever we click here, we see that we have a lot of Java development kits that are available for download. Alright, so we know that we don't want Linux because I'm not on Linux. We know that we don't want Mac, so we have a couple options here, Windows x86 and Windows 64. Now, the difference between these two is 64 is for the Windows 64-bit version, and the 86 is for the 32-bit version of Windows. So if you don't know what version of Windows you have, go to the Start menu, and where you see Computer right here, right-click it, and then you're going to see a thing called Properties. Whenever you select that, if you look at your system type, it says, okay, 64-bit operating system. So that means I have a Windows 64-bit. So whenever I download this, I'm going to choose 64. If yours says 32, then click this one right here. But, of course, you need to accept the agreement first, and then download it. And what it's going to do is it's going to download an executable file, and it's going to take a while, so I'll pause my video. I won't make you watch the whole thing. And we are back. It took about a minute, but now I just download the entire executable. And of course, if you're on Chrome, which you probably should be, highly recommend it, then go to your downloads and you can just click that. However, if you accidentally close out of that, then of course your downloaded files, if you go to your, well, I'll just show you guys. Alright, you can either go to your computer from Windows Explorer and click downloads. That's probably the easiest way, so just do that. So anyways, whatever file you just downloaded, double click it, and then of course, I actually don't know if you could see that. I don't know if my screen recorder showed my system little pop-ups there, but it says, do you want to allow this to access your computer? Yes. Let me close out all this. Alright, so this is really self-explanatory. If you ever downloaded anything before, then it's going to be simple. Just click next, next, and it's going to do all the hard work for you. However, there's one thing, once this is completely done, that you guys need to follow along with. So again, if you think about skipping this entire tutorial, don't do that because you're going to miss an important step at the end. So wait for this entire thing to whatever. Alright, and what you want to do is you want to make sure to leave everything in its default location, because as long as you do that and as long as you follow along, then whenever you download and install Android Studio, it's not gonna be confused looking at some weird location for anything. So make sure that you keep all the default settings whenever you're running this installer. Alright, so now we have the JDK installed on our computer. However, before we download Android Studio, what we need to do is we need to tell our computer exactly where it is. And that's because later on when we when we download Android Studio, it's going to look for that JDK. So what we need to do is we need to explicitly say, hey computer, this is where the JDK is. So go to your start menu and then click on computer, and then make sure you're starting at your hard drive. So in order to get the path to this, as long as you kept everything at default during installation, it's going to be in your program files. And then if you go down to Java, double click that, And what folder you want to click on is actually the JDK. This is the Java Runtime Environment, the JRE. Don't worry about that. Double click the JDK, and this is actually the path you want. So what you can do now is you can actually right click any of these files, but because it's going to give you the same path, what I'm about to show you guys. But just for consistency, right click this bin and click Properties. So again, this is the location that you're looking for right here. The location that your Java development kit is at. So copy that, right click and copy, and now once you have that location, close out of everything because we have to tell our computer, alright, this is where our JDK is. So how do we do that? It's actually pretty simple. If you open your start menu again and right click computer and go to properties, you're going to see a link on the left hand side that says advanced system settings. If you click that, you're going to see this little pop-up right here. Click on the button that says environment variables. So I already have this set up because actually for this tutorial I uninstalled my Java JDK and then I reinstalled it. So, just to show you guys how to do it. But you're probably aren't going to have a variable set up right here. So in order to get that, click new under user variables, and you need to name the variable Java underscore home. Make sure that everything is in capital letters, and then for the variable value, paste in that location of your JDK and hit OK. So what we're essentially doing is we're telling our computer, alright, whenever you need to work with the Java JDK, or the JDK is kind of redundant what I'm saying, but whenever Android Studio is looking for it, then it's going to look in your environment variables and it's going to say, okay, that's where all the crap I need is. So, it's not literally going to say crap, but, now that we have everything compatible and our computer is able to find and work with the Java JDK, it's probably getting annoying that I keep saying that, but whatever. We are now set up and ready to move on to the next step. Alright guys, so the next thing we have to do is download Android Studio. Now, the website is most likely going to change because they always do. However, if you just type in download Android Studio, it's always going to be the first thing that pops up. So click this, and of course, this is the program that allows you to write Android applications. Now, the cool thing about this is that unlike the old program that you used to use, this was made just for writing Android apps, and it has everything you need built in. So this is the program where we actually write the code, and this is the program where all these little emulators, which are pretty much like virtual phones that you can test on, those are built into the entire like layout designer, and I'll teach you guys how to use that later on, but it's basically a graphical way to lay out your Android apps that's built in as well. It's incredibly awesome, incredibly cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So of course, click that, agree to whatever. Let me read this real quick. Oh, pretty cool. Alright, download this. And it's actually probably going to take a little bit to download because it's almost a gigabyte. It might be a gigabyte by the time you download it. But anyways, I'll come back to you guys when this is done. Alright, so it took a while, but I finally have it download this executable file right here. And I want to mention this real quick before I move on. If anyone was lazy and decided to skip my last tutorial, what we did is we set up the JDK to be compatible with Android Studio. So if you did do that and skip everything, then follow this direction right here. But for those of you guys who stuck with me, then you guys are good to go because we already did that step. So anyways, actually I'm going to close out of that. We don't need this browser anymore. However, if we go to our downloaded files, then we see that we now have this Android Studio bundle. So this, of course, is the installer. So double click that. Alright, so anything that pops up, just say yes. We trust them, we trust Google. Next. And leave, pretty much you're going to leave all of these as the defaults. Agree, agree. Do I want to install in the default location? Yes. Recommended, looks good. That looks good as well. Alright, so it says it is complete. Installation complete. Setup was completed successfully. Sweet. Go ahead and click next. And I actually don't want to start this up right yet because what I want to do is I'm going to go to my start menu right here and I'm going to go to all programs. And now we can see after we have everything downloaded and installed, we're going to have a folder called Android Studio. So if I click that, I'm going to see this Android Studio program. I'm going to right click it and send it to desktop. So that way I have a Android Studio icon on my desktop because we're going to be using it a lot now. So the first time I open this, I'm going to right click and we're going to choose Run as Administrator. Now the very first time you open it, this thing is going to pop up right here and it's going to download all the extra components that it needs, but don't worry, this is only a one-time thing the very first time to set everything up. Alright, so all those additional components look like everything is good to go, so click Finish. Alright, so this is the welcome screen to Android Studio. From here, what we can do is we can actually start a brand new project. However, before we get started, there is one last thing that we need to do. And this isn't absolutely necessary, but it's going to save you guys a ton of headaches in the future. If you go down to Configure right here, you're going to see something called SDK Manager. And if this is grayed out or you can't select it for some reason, make sure that you close out of this and right click and run as administrator, and then it's going to be available. So anyways, click this right here, and what's going to happen is you're going to have a new pop-up window that appears. Now this basically allows you to download additional packages or additional code that you're going to use whenever you're developing apps. As you can see, it says install 9 packages, and the ones that are checked are actually the ones that we're going to want to install. So if you click this button right here, and of course we need to accept the license and install, then what it's going to do is it's going to install these additional packages. Alright guys, so once you have all the optional packages installed, what you can do is just close out of Android SDK Manager, and it's also a better idea to close the Android Studio altogether, and now right click it and run it as administrator to open it again. And the reason that you want to do this is because whenever you open it this time, you want to make sure that Android Studio is aware of all the updated packages. So that's why we closed out and opened it again, so it doesn't have anything weird stored in its cache or memory or anything. So now we are finally done installing everything and setting everything up. We are ready to start making our first Android project.